Okay,
Yes,
here we go.
it is recording.
All right, good evening, everyone. We are already on week 4, so just make sure you are turning in your homework assignments because we are more than halfway through the course, all right? I will be reaching out to some of you individually if you haven't turned anything in, but for those of you who have, keep up the great work, all right? Okay, Deanne, it's all yours.
All right, well, welcome officially as we get started here. Thanks for logging in. Happy July 1st. I know we got the holiday coming up, so we might have a couple people not on for various reasons. That's fine. Just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Tonight we are on the topic of sales. We're also going to deal with some personal branding items as well as, some marketing items. And really kind of setting us up for next week in value delivery. So, and there's no better person to really speak to that. I'm sure he would disagree with me. He's a pretty humble guy. But we have Dr. Tommy Karam. I've never called him Dr. Karam in my life. I actually didn't realize he had a PhD until about last year. And he's just very down to earth. He's a professor at LSU. I'll let him share a little more about his experience. We posted his bio in Blackboard. Phenomenal speaker and has become a good friend to IVMF, to our team, and to me. And he spoke at many of our programs, and he's got the experience to back it up, the knowledge and experience. So without further ado, I won't take up any more time. I'll pass it to Tommy, and if you take a moment to introduce yourself, and then you can kick it off with some things that you had to share before we start the Q&A. Just to remind everyone, you can post a question in the chat function. I'll monitor that, or you can just say that you can put your hand up, or say that you'd like to ask a question live, and we'll filter that. So I keep track of those, and we haven't had a problem yet with getting to everyone's questions. So without further ado, over to you, Tommy.
Thank you. So here I am at LSU. Enjoy being with y'all in an office down the hall from where I used to have an office. And I'm sitting around here doing what most teachers do, and just fiddling around, acting like you're busy. Many years ago, I'm sitting around here doing whatever it is, and a kid knocks on my door. And I hear this little knock, and this guy pokes his head in, and he looks at me. I've never seen him before. I'm just doing my work. And a nice little student says, with a nice voice and a sincere look about him, he says, "Excuse me, they tell me you can help me be a better speaker. Would you mind helping me?" Well, you're going to say no. So I said, "Well, I sure, come on in, have a seat." He sits across from me. This kid asked a nice question. I said, "So you want to be a better speaker and you want me to help you?" I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "Well, I stutter a lot, and I don't think I can have the career I want if I stutter, and they say you can help me." I said, "Well, I really don't do stuttering, but I'll try to help you. But excuse me, I'm sorry, what's your name?" And he goes, "My name is Shaquille O'Neal, and I'm on the basketball team." And I'm like, "Really?" Back then, he was just Shaquille O'Neal, tall guy, but a nice guy. He has a stuttering problem. I don't do stuttering. That's hard. And I told him that, but I said he was so genuine. His brand was so nice and simple. I said, "Let me help you." So we visit, we work. I get a camera, the old-fashioned cameras, and he starts to talk. And as he's talking, he's trying to explain to me that he thinks that he might have a good career after basketball. And he says, "So what I need you to do," he goes, "See, I stuttered." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "I stuttered." I said, "I hate to tell you this, that's not stuttering. That's called mumbling, and you don't stutter." And I cured Shaquille O'Neal of stuttering that day. And so, but let me tell you what I saw with Shaquille O'Neal. I saw the beauty of imperfection. I saw the beauty of a guy who the who's made him look good. And I'm here to, I was here to help him because he was so nice. And from there, I learned something else. And this is what today and every day thereafter was about. I learned from Shaquille O'Neal, just a little simple undergraduate student, not the guy you know today, this superstar, just a nice kid. I learned that it's not about being perfect and presenting and making a sales pitch. It's about creating a personal brand that's going to let you in the room when you knock on the door, a personal brand where somebody is going to say, sit down, tell me something, talk to me. And that's when I learned about personal branding. What I do at LSU in addition to teaching, I'm very fortunate and blessed to work with the athletes and help the athletes create a brand that's going to be exciting for the fans and maybe create an opportunity for them whenever they leave LSU and do other stuff. So I have about 6.5 minutes. I'm going to tell you everything that I know about personal branding in 6.5 minutes, and then how it ties into everything you're doing in your careers and all these great business ventures you're doing. And then maybe it'll help you also, not just at work, but at home and every spot in between. So if you can write this down, if you remember this, I would appreciate it. No, I wouldn't appreciate it. You will appreciate it because it's going to make everything you do just a little bit more better. So what Shaquille taught me, what I want to teach you, what I've learned and I help the athletes do, is there's this one concept in personal branding. First of all, it's not social media. This, my friends, is a flip phone. I use a flip phone. Why? Because I don't know how to use anything, and I don't need anything else. My life is boring. It's not social media. I know nothing about social media except this. Yes, you got to manage your social media, but you got to be careful because once you press send, if you're not careful, you can destroy your brand. I'm thinking about the interaction you have, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's live. I'm learning real quickly about the Zoom thing. I'm learning that every single thing about personal branding applies to Zoom. And actually, it's magnified because of Zoom. So if I can get your brand good and you can use it in a Zoom session or live, you now gain this thing called a competitive advantage over the competition. And as you know, you have competition. You might be somebody's competition or they may be your competition, but the competition's always there. So personal branding is what people think of when they think about you. They may see you in a Zoom square box. They don't hear a word you're saying. They see you in a Zoom square box. They're going to formulate an opinion of you. Likability is the emotional impact you have on somebody. The ability for somebody to like you enough to want to do what you're asking him to do. When that knock came on the door, I don't know who this kid is, but he was so likable. I said, come in, have a seat. And I got lucky. And from there, a great friendship was born. So what is likability? The emotional impact you have on somebody, what is personal branding? It's the emotional impact you have on somebody. And here's the key word. All you got to do is write down 2 things. You write down these 2 things, and you'll be home free. The key is likability. Likability, my dear friends. Likability. Likability is not the Zuckerberg like button. That's cute, it's cuddly, it's cozy. Likability is the emotional impact you have on somebody. The ability for somebody to look at you, like you enough, to walk in the room, ask you, make your presentation, maybe disagree with you, but walk away and you've left them with a great memory of who you are and your brand will live a long life. Likability is the emotional impact you have on somebody. My friends, you can be serious. You can be intense. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can still be likable. In the world of sports, I always talk about the 2 people. You have Eldrick Woods, the former Tiger Woods, who's intense, but he was likable. And he's overcome all of his troubles. He's back to where he once was. His competition was Phil Mickelson, who's the exact opposite, cuddly and happy and jovial. So you can be serious like Eldrick, Tiger Woods. You can be kind of lighthearted like Phil Mickelson or anywhere in between. But if you're likable, you're going to sell more. If you're likable, the sales pitch you have is going to be more. If you're likable, you're in the sales business. Or if you're ready for this, if you're likable, you can teach your employees how to be likable. Because, my dear, you can't give good customer service without understanding this, I don't believe. And we know in the world of marketing that customer service is about creating experience for that customer and making them feel appreciated. And if you understand this, it helps. And what you're presenting to others, it helps give customer service and helps at all stops in between. 38%, just a number to know because it's a number to know. 38% of the emotional impact you have, the ability for somebody to want to find you likable, to want to sit there and have you present to them. 38% of the emotional impact you have is vocal delivery. My dear friends, vocal delivery. Nobody pays any attention to this. You have to pay attention to this. You have to understand that there's one term. Shaquille is not a great speaker. You're not supposed to be a great speaker. That's not what we're doing. But he has a great delivery, and he sounds so fun and enjoyable or serious. Others are like that. The tone of voice is what you must pay attention to. Your tone of voice is what's going to make your brand more likable, will therefore make your message more marketable, and will make you more persuasive when you're trying to sell ideas or products. Tone of voice, and you got to hear it. And the beauty is you've got to hear it. And the three killers in tone of voice that will hurt your brand. Number one is boring. It's the same thing over and over. And in your industry, in my industry, in every industry, we say the same thing over and over. So don't sound boring. Make it sound unique for the very first time, every time. Number two is whining or bitter or angry. I know we get emotional, but you've got to capture, you got to control it. You can't whine, not that you do, but if you hear you whining, then somebody told me the other day I whined. Or about a year ago I whined. And I'm like, wow. It'll sting you, it'll hurt you. I'm not saying to do that, but guess what? I don't whine as much because I can hear it. So boring and whining, and here's the killer, the silent killer in tone of voice, and it's called arrogance. They'll tell you you're boring, they'll tell you you whine, they'll never tell you you're arrogant. The tone of voice of arrogance is when people think they've got to be perfect, and they try so hard to be perfect, and they never want to be wrong, and they push so hard, and they come across as arrogant. When I think if you try to not be perfect, in your content you're perfect, in your delivery you're not, if you let this nervousness that hopefully you're going to have sometimes, embrace the nervousness, a little bit of nervousness, not so much as it makes you ineffective, but enough nervousness so it just takes the edge off of this firmness and this tendency to accidentally come across as arrogant. So pay attention to tone, listen to the tone, and you'll have more impact. But here's why I'm here. This is it. You get this, it's a quadruple your money back guarantee that everything you do, both as an entrepreneur, a business owner, and outside of work, everything gets a little bit more better. 55%, which is a big number. Miss 55 on an examination, what do you get? At LSU, you get a C+ because we curve. But your customers don't curve, banks don't curve, investors don't curve. You miss 55, you're done for this particular sales pitch. 55%, it's visual, and let me tell you what this is absolutely the magic bullet for everything you do. It's called your default look. Your default look, my dear precious friends. And in the age of Zoom and virtual, it is absolutely, I think it's bigger than that, but I'm not going to tamper with a classic study. Your default look is the facial expression you have. When I see you on a Zoom session, and if you have a bad default look, I'm clicking and going to somebody else. If I see you in a waiting room live or on Zoom, and you have a bad default look, then I'm going to go to somebody, and that's how we work. That's how it works. That's why in Louisiana, forgive me, I still like the guy he messed up, but I still love him. Drew Brees has a default look that's just so engaging. Jay Cutler, who's a better quarterback than Drew Brees, got thrown out of the league because he was a bum because he had a default look and everybody hated him. What is your default look? I'm your friend, Deanne. I'm your friend, right? Yeah, but I've got the worst default look in America, and they still invite me back. Nobody told me for 24 gorgeous, wonderful years that my default look was miserable. Default look is your facial expression when you're not talking. I don't know if you can see me or not. This is my default look of absolute happiness. I would sit around happy. I'm sitting around blessed. You want some of this? You want some of this? Nobody told me for 24 years. I'm here to tell you in 24 minutes, you must figure out what your default look is. And listen, please carefully listen. It's not smiling. Smiling is great. But what is your default look whenever you're sitting there listening? It took my now dear friend, Ricky G. Francois, who was played for 12 years in the NFL, championship in every category. It took my friend Ricky G. Francois to tell me when he came back from media training, he didn't want to be around me because I am one mean dude. Look at this. This is one mean dude. I'm one mean dude because I had this default look that looked miserable, cold, angry. I made Jay Cutler look happy. So I'm here to tell you, my friends, that you've got to figure out your default look. If we had more time, and we don't, but I do later on, if you want a little something, we can come back. You got to figure out what your default look is. You got to look in a mirror tonight and figure out what your default look is. I'm giving you homework and you don't even know me. Your homework is when this session is over, to go home, or I guess you are home, and to leave everybody behind, go to the room that has a mirror and look in that mirror and figure out what your default look is. What you do is you walk up to the mirror, you turn, you look. If you flinch, you got a problem. You take the muscle right here, that muscle right here, and you tweak it just a bit. Now, why is this important? Because if you don't do it, they're not going to let you in the room. You can knock on the door all you want, and you can't go in with a bad default look, then shake a hand and glow, because when you leave, the default look's going to go away, and you look angry. They're going to know you're a hoax. You've got to make this a common, everyday part of who you are. It is a quadruple your money back guarantee that this will make everything you do just a little bit more better. So whenever you're making these presentations and you're making these pictures, here's the other trick to the trade. You can't overreact to the default look of the person across from you. In other words, you're presented to somebody. It may be a customer, it may be a banker, it may be an investor, it may be a family member. If they have a bad default look, you can't overreact to that. That's what everybody does. Everybody's looking for somebody to do this all the time. And they do this all the time, you fall in love with them. But most people do this all the time. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're not listening. Now, you must manage your default look all the time. When you're making presentations and you're doing sales, you're trying to have a, as we call it in the world of negotiation, have that difficult conversation. The person across from you, let them do what they're going to do. If they're happy, let them be happy. If they're angry, let them be angry. If they look bored, let them be bored. If they look at their watch, let them look at their watch. If they yawn, let them yawn. That means nothing. Your job is not to overreact to their default look. Your job is to manage your default look, and you can be serious. Remember that. You can be serious. And then, therefore, your tone of voice won't change when you see them gloomy, and your facial expression, your default look won't change when you see them gloomy, and then you can leave them with a great impact and a great impression. So if you do your math, as we do down south, this plus this leaves something else. What's that for 6, 7% is the verbal arrangement of the message. 7% says content is king. Excuse me, content is king. But the 7% says don't worry about having it structured perfectly. Don't memorize the script. Don't read off of a board. Know the material and just talk. Know the material and just say it in your own, put it in your own words, because the verbal arrangement doesn't matter. In this, you see the great executives who get in trouble, the ones who mess up. Sorry about Eldrick Woods, Tiger Woods. The reason he messed up is somebody wrote for $264,000 a 2-paragraph apology, and everybody would, please, come on. When all he had to say is what Zuckerberg said whenever he went to Congress, I made a mistake, it's my problem, it's my company, and I got to fix it, done. So as you're presenting to somebody, and you got to practice a little bit, but break from the script. Y'all know Joe Burrow. I don't know if you know Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy. I was very blessed to be able to hang out, or not hang out, offer a little bit of advice to Joe Burrow. Can I say one thing kind of somewhat private? The speech Joe Burrow gave was not the speech Joe Burrow prepared for. That legendary speech that's now, legendary in the world of sports, was not the speech he prepared for. He prepared, but when he got up there, something took over, and he delivered something that, in a classic speech way, was not any good. Legendary, it was sensational. Because the genuineness, the brand, the content, the words, the emotion, it resonated. Y'all saw it. The speech was prepared. He didn't give 90. He didn't give 2% of what he prepared for, but he thought about it. It was in his mind, and then it ran through his heart and dropped through a few tears. And all of a sudden, what he did at that moment was genuine. There's no difference in what he does. There's no difference in what Shaquille O'Neal does. There's no difference in what you do. We're not here to deliver great oratorical presentations. You're here to sell yourself that you're the person they want to deal with, to be able to have a message, and you have a good message, and not to be legendary. He was legendary by accident, but to be able to leave an impact that isn't done by accident. So my dear friends, if you can understand this, that your likability, your ability to be able to walk in a room, happy, and by the way, they may tell you no. And the fact that they tell you no means nothing. They may say no today and they'll say yes tomorrow, because in your business, there are more tomorrows than there are yesterdays. So just because they dismiss you doesn't mean you may not have left a nice lasting impression. So you've got to understand this idea of kind of branding. It's consistent. It's consistent at home. It's consistent at work. It's consistent in presentation. And you've got to figure it out tonight. Yes, tonight. And you're not too old. Everybody goes, I'm too old. You're not too old. And it can be done. We do it all the time, but people at every age, at every level, every industry, you can do it instantly. And if you do it, you'll see the difference, and it won't be dramatic. It'll be subtle, it'll be soft, it'll be the tweak, and it will make a difference. One last thing, and then if you have a question. There's this concept, it's called the thin slice. The thin slice says this: people can see you in something as quick as 1/24th of a second and formulate an opinion of you. Anywhere from 1/24th of a second to 15 seconds, they can see you and not hear a word you say and formulate an opinion of you. Now you see why your presence on Zoom is important. Now you see why, for us today, that's not a big deal. But whenever you're in a Zoom meeting, you're not saying nothing. You're just there, and maybe you say something, but while they see you in those little thin slices, they're formulating opinions of you. An image is created something as quick as 1/24th of a second. This is 1/24th of a second. This is 1/24th of a second. In 1/24th of a second, you roll your eyes, you're done. You do the Heisman pose like my good friend Leonard Fournette did, and they'll call you arrogant when he didn't mean to. That's 1/24th of a second, the Heisman pose. So images of you can be created very quickly. That's the whole point. It's art long, but quickly too. So that's why this matters when you're walking down the hall. By the way, the reason I'm one mean dude, for the record, I just found out from Ricky Jean Francois, the reason I'm one mean dude is he would see me walking in between classes every day. He never knew who I was. He knew about me. He didn't know me. He would see me. My default look was cold like this. Unfortunately, I think it's warm, but it's not. And he would judge me as one mean dude. Walking past the hall, you know people whose offices you just pass by. You know people who you see in these little one thin slices. So people are formulating opinions of you 1/24th of a second to 15 seconds. And of course, it can go longer. So that's why you've got to be aware of this. And I have my fourth, finally, and I'm name dropping, but forgive me, I have to, because it makes sense. My best friend in sports is Eric Martin, who you've never heard of. Eric was a wide receiver for the Saints and a wide receiver for LSU, Hall of Famer in both those organizations. His best friend is a guy named Michael Jordan, who you may have seen on The Last Dance. So my best friend's best friend is Michael Jordan, which makes Michael Jordan my best friend, 3 people removed. Okay, I don't know Michael Jordan, but I've been around Eric Martin, who lives with Michael Jordan. I like Michael Jordan way before The Last Dance. I like Michael Jordan, but I've learned so much. I don't know Michael, but I know when Michael saw Eric, and I know what Michael does. Michael's mantra is this: the camera never blinks. This is way before Zoom. The camera never blinks, not the Zoom camera, the human eye. They see Michael Jordan here and there. They see Michael Jordan. I haven't seen The Last Dance yet because I already saw the original dance around Michael, and I don't want to see The Last Dance for a while. I know what I saw, and I like what I saw. But Michael Jordan knew that the camera never blinks. The camera, the TV camera, the human eye camera, the fans camera, or today maybe the camera. But it's how people see you. The camera never blinks, and it may not be the interview. It may be away from the interview. It may not be at the presentation. It's away from the presentation. It may not be in the meeting. It may be outside the meeting. It may be getting out of your car. It may be walking away when they say, no, get out of here. I don't like your idea, but you do it in a very gracious way. All of this, as simple as it is, and it's simple, leaves an impact and an impression on you. It makes all this academic stuff you're doing right now with EBV, it elevates that. But when you leave that and step into the next arena, it makes it even more impactful. So it complements all the academic work you're doing. You put it around your brand, you learn tonight, you do your homework, and you'll see the difference it makes in everything you do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so it wasn't
for
6
sharing
minutes.
that. I appreciate it. I mean, we could close the webinar now, I think. I think we've said it. No, I'm just kidding, but
I'm sorry.
That's good. Let me just say, normally Tommy does this in 2 hours and he just sized it down to about 20 minutes, and I mean, we got the nuts and bolts of the meat and potatoes of that. And I really appreciate that, Tommy. We do have Lamar said mic drop. Perfect. So we do have our first question, and it's from Helena. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much for the lesson tonight and for the videos that were part of this week's assignment. So first, I hope we get like a Zoom session with you as part of being in this course, because yeah, I have some personal questions. But I have hit that stage where I'm very cynical, and often my passion comes across as frustration. Yeah. So what are your tips for how do we recognize when that's taking place? And what are some things we can put into place to kind of shift the gears of our conversation at that point?
You mean relaying that when talking to somebody?
Yes. So
okay.
When you say, when you talk about your default, having that default look, I have no poker face. When I'm talking to someone, dealing with someone, whether it be customers, clients, people that are trying to sell us things to the company, I just have I have no poker face. I'm just letting them know either I'm not interested, I'm on the next one.
Yeah, I think you might want to rethink that for a little bit. And we can do this in a private session one day on a Zoom. Yeah. I mean, by the way, if y'all want me to, Deanne, I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
We're not saying be artificial by any means, but you've got to control the emotion a little bit. And a poker face is not a good face, by the way. A poker face is just kind of an angry face. So I don't know if you're about, but if you show your emotions too much, you're going to chase them away. And I think you got to be careful. And again, it's not smiling. But if the customer is angry or you're frustrated with the customer, you can't mirror that. And a lot of people mirror that. In other words, they're mad. Oh, you want to be mad? You want a little bit of mad? I'll show you mad. They get angry. You want a little bit angry? I can out angry you. And that is the hardest thing to guard against. I glossed over it because I was kind of rushing. But the hardest thing to learn, and this is what I would suggest that you think about until we meet again, if we meet again. As much as I'm going to help everybody understand what your default look is. The reason for that is so that whenever you're interacting with somebody and they're sassy and mean and cold and all that stuff that angers us, right? You got to feel what that default look is, which has to be likable. And you have to know that the look that they have may not be as dramatic and negative and dangerous as you think it is. So I believe that to answer this question, I think the best I can, that if you don't overreact and try to read the person across from you, I would think that you might be able to settle down a little bit more and control your emotion and be more persuasive and influential, give better customer service, handle complaints, and all these things. I think they come to a better resolution. And it's hard. Trust me, it's doing this homework tonight, it's easy. I can work with y'all, everybody here 3 minutes, and I'll have all y'all perfect. It's not cocky, it's just simple. But here's the hard part. Can you sit across the table from somebody? I do this with everybody when I work with them. Can you sit across the table from somebody when they're doing this while you're talking? Can you handle that? Can y'all handle this? Hurry up. What's your question? I got place. If you can handle that, you win. Can you handle that? I don't know, but you have to. And I think right now, this little default look you got right now, why that's not consistently everything you do is a mystery to me. If you have that default look, that's the default look you have to have. That's how the assignment works. You got to feed it right there. If that person rolls their eyes, if their tone of voice, if they're everything this is not, and you can maintain that default look, then all your problems are not going to go away, but they're going to be managed and they're not going to grow into something destructive.
That's great. Thank you, Tommy. We're going to go to a question from Tiana. Tiana, would you like me to ask that? Okay, I'll ask it for her. Tiana's company is really a personal brand at this point. But as she says, as I grow, I'll need to differentiate my personal brand from my company as I introduce employees into the mix. How would you recommend going about that transition?
of introducing herself to her, the personal brand she's going to have as the boss with the employees? I'm sorry, is that the question?
I can clarify.
Yeah.
So basically right now, I'm selling myself as the cannabis data nerd. I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm doing all this stuff in partnerships with organizations right now. But as I grow, I really want my firm to be doing the work rather than just be about me. And I want to know, how do I transition from it being just my personal branding into my actual company branding? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it does. I mean, it makes sense to understand it. How about that? So you got to make, here's my answer. Here's my answer. I don't know if it's for your question, but here's an answer for you, the best I can do. You understand the power of personal brand. You understand that you got to be likable. You understand you're in business dealing with lots of money, lots of people. Okay, I got that. But that's important. You've got to train your employees to be like you. In other words, if they're not likable, if they don't have a good default look, if they can't handle a difficult conversation, if they can't deal with a grumpy customer, we don't dismiss. I'm not a dismissed guy. We train them, we rebuild them, we help them. If you can create that atmosphere and you be the trainer, or eventually hire somebody who can train, that's where training comes in with employees, because they become, as they call them, the billboards for the organization. And if you want your company to, you talk about differentiation, you want your company to differentiate, whatever your product is, all that kind of stuff is one thing. Pricing is another thing. I get all that, but that's easy to do. You have a staff that's well-trained, and they're good enough and strong enough to be able to handle, not with the criticism, but the advice about how they can do it, because they are a reflection of you. One thing I forgot to say, just because it was short, the reason every organization asks people like me to help them, it's not that they care a little bit about the athlete, but they care about what? The company brand. Drew Brees, Joe Burrow, Ed Ogeron, whoever you want down south, the people in your areas, the athletes are trained. Yeah, they want the athlete to be good, but the athlete becomes an extension of the New Orleans Saints or the LSU Tigers or the Syracuse Orange. Your employees have to become an extension of you, because you're the brand.
So really quick follow-up on that. So are you saying that like my personal branding really should become the company culture then, and that should be a guideline that all my employees like fall under?
I think so. Can you be financially rigorous? Yes. Can you be, punctual? All that, the operational piece, yes. But if you're if we're talking about your personal brand, which I think is smart, absolutely, because they're not going to see you all the time. They're going to see the people who work for you. And when they see and that's who they see. That's why football coaches, the ones who really care about the players carrying themselves well, because they're an extension of the coach, they're an extension of the university. It's no different. You replace that with your company and with you. And yes, you have to train. Now, they have to have their own personality. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you don't want to have a bunch of clones out there, but you can have different personalities of a lot of different people who are likable. And tell me another organization that has it. And by the way, you can't say a 5-star hotel, because when you see, after you stay 2 nights at a 5-star hotel, they drop their guard. I've never been at a 5-star hotel, but I've walked past a 5-star hotel, and they're good, but they're not good for more than 2 days. Your company has to be good every day. So, and you can teach them that. And it's cheap. Excuse me, it's inexpensive. I hope that helps.
Beautiful, thank you. On to the next one. Josh has a real-time sales question for you. He started a catering business. His business is barbecue. And he got a quote request on Yelp for a company breakfast for 200 people. He got the person interested, and they chatted a bit via email. And she said she was presenting options to her board yesterday, which was Tuesday. He wants to send a follow-up email, but doesn't want to come off too pushy. How would the great Dr. Tommy Karam approach this?
I'm on the other side of aggressive, so just so you know, I'm probably to the extreme of aggressive, but I would send a very polite email. Maybe tomorrow, if not tomorrow, then Tuesday, but not Monday. And it starts with this, and I'm just a big believer in this. a cordial hello, sorry to bother you, just a quick question, not putting any pressure on you, just checking to see if you have any questions about my quote. Just let me know if you do, because I definitely want to work with you and we can make this happen. Call me at your convenience. I think something, not in my words, again, that's why it has to be in your words. So I would say I would write it and do it in a very polite way. My friends, polite manners, professionalism, it should never go out of style. And so, and just say, I'm not bothering you, I'm not hurrying you. Don't say it in those words. Just when you get a chance, and let them know this. This is what I've learned in negotiation as we teach our negotiation class. And let me tell you, it works. And you've quoted them a price, so I'll give you that. And just let me know, because I want to work with you. And there's your answer, that I want to work with you, because you got a little movement, maybe not a lot, but just the fact that you out, and I look forward to working with you on the price if we need to. It just basically shows they're dealing with somebody who is a genuine, nice person who's trying to make money in business, but that's the people want to work with. That's the advice I would give.
And I will piggyback on that, because I try to get a lot of quotes from people, and I send a quote massively out when we're doing at events, and the people that check in and they say, do you have questions about my quote? And that's a pretty standard, and that's not a pushy thing, because sometimes it triggers to me to say, oh yeah, I need to follow up with this person, or oh yeah, well maybe they do want to do business with me. Well, maybe they'd be willing to work with the price here or there. So I think that's a great suggestion, because that's what I see from some good sales reps.
And Josh, is it Josh? That is a brilliant question. Josh, one thing also, as you craft this email, everybody, when you craft an email, you can, my opinion, you can never send the original draft. No matter what it is. You can't send, because it's going to be better if you look it over, and it's going to get even better if you look it over a little bit more, and it's going to be better if you get up and go get a cup of coffee and look it over. And if you can wait, it's better in the afternoon than it is in the morning. And it's better for sure in the morning than it is in the afternoon. And all you're doing is tweaking it. But if you rush and if you rush and send it, not that you're going to make a mistake, but I don't think it's going to be as persuasive and non-offensive as it would be with a little bit of time. That's the key, because we're so fast in doing emails, but maybe not 3 or 4 hours like I suggested, but the longer you can wait before pressing send, and the more you can proofread it, not for grammatical errors, just for a tone in an email, I think the more powerful it's going to be.
Thank you, Tommy. Going on to the next question, Bob has the question on, how do you handle the no?
Oh, you embrace the no. Bob, the hardest thing to do, I hate no. It makes me cry. I'm a coward. I'm a wimp. Just so y'all know, this is no lie. Dean, I never told you this. I'll tell y'all this. You don't even know me. I'll tell you this. I had an opportunity for my dear friend, Eric Martin, who knows his best friend, Michael. When he retired, I said, Michael, I got this great book I want to write with you. I want to ghostwrite it for you on branding. So Eric Martin said, come to Chicago and present the book to Michael Jordan. And what did I say? I ain't coming. They waited on me, and your cowardly friend did not get on the plane. And I didn't, because Michael, I heard he's ferocious and he's intense. And I was afraid he was going to hurt my feelings and say, no. And how about that for pathetic? But anyway, I didn't, because I didn't want to hurt my feelings. No doesn't feel good, but I think if they say no, and usually somebody say no, like no. And somebody say no. But I think back to this whole idea of not overreacting. I'm better with no, by the way, because now I know that no gives me an opportunity to do it again. So if they say no, and you can't take offense. But let me tell you one thing great, because y'all are in sales, y'all are good. There's this great thing called a follow-up when they say no. I got a friend of mine who became a wonderful, wonderful sports agent, because he couldn't handle, he got mad when they said no. And he fled. And I fussed at him lovingly. And I said, try something else. And he came up with a system. Every time they said no, the player signs with somebody else. He sent a follow-up note, not tampering, going, I got it, I get it. Good luck with so-and-so. He's going to serve you well. And that was it. But that follow-up to every no he got laid a foundation for him, not to get that athlete, but for that athlete to talk good about him to his friends who then came back and used him. So when you hear a no, first of all, you got to be comfortable hearing it. That's why I'm not in sales. I'm not comfortable hearing it. And you've got to be able to either A, know it's a definite no and you're finished, and send a note going, sorry, it didn't work out. Maybe another time, let me know, which I love that technique. I love it. I'm sorry. I just love it. And that would be my advice for a no.
Thank you. We have another question now. They're just coming in one after the other. So this is perfect. This is what I love to see. So this one is from Monifa. She sells hair accessories where her target audience is the African American community. She's asking, how do I pitch or discuss my products to people that do not understand Black hair? The people I am talking to are market managers and do not have knowledge or an understanding of why my accessories are needed for Black hair. How do I get my point across so they do not get frustrated with trying to understand something they are not connected to? That's a loaded question, but a good question.
No, there are a couple angles that, one is, I think this may be a situation where a demonstration may help. I mean, you may have to show, I don't know, but some situations just work better if you can just show them that the reason that it has to go here. I think that helps. The other idea I would say is it may take more than one visit to prove the point. Sometimes you can't do it all in one, and maybe you need to streamline your presentation. Number three is you got to tell that person, forget about how the product works. You got to convince that person there's a huge lucrative audience out there that wants this product. And to me, I would lead with that there is a population out there that wants the product, that needs the product, that spends a lot of money on this product. Then show them the product if you need to, and maybe the uniqueness of the product, how it works, if it's something like that. And then I wouldn't push so hard in trying to deliver all the information at one time. I'm a big believer in this thing called time and persuasion. And sometimes it takes one visit, two visits, three visits to convince somebody. And so I would probably streamline my message a little bit. I would definitely, but the pitch I would make is there's a tremendous target market out there, a lucrative, high spending market that wants this product. Here's the product. And maybe do this. Maybe leave a few samples. You know, samples are your samples. If you look at all the rage, sampling is the big leap. Free trials and samples are an enormously effective way to get people to try a product and figure it out for themselves. So that would be it's a big question. It's a complicated question. And so I take one hopefully I threw something out there that sticks. But I'm being repetitive here, but I'm not doing it. But keep it simple. And don't confuse them as you try to explain the product to them. Oh, excuse me. And one more thing for everybody. As you're presenting the product to them, even though they look like they don't care, and even though they look like they're not interested, and even though they look like they're confused, and even though they look like you're wasting their time, you might not be. It's back to that whole, I'm not saying that but don't, because they're not giving you a head nod and their eyes are glowing and they're smiling, it doesn't mean they're not processing it and thinking about it. So don't weigh your presentation based upon what they're saying. Let them say, as the other person said, let them say no before you say no for them.
She said thank you and that she would like to contact you in the future. So if you wouldn't mind, could we share your contact information with the class?
Yes, I'm at 1-800. Yeah, of course, give my email.
Great, we'll do that for sure.
If all y'all can have, anybody can have it if y'all want it.
Great. Thank
I
you
can
so
call
much.
you. We could, anything else? I'm sorry.
No, we're good. So I do have some other questions that I had on the burner, but it looks like, do we have any other questions? Helena, all right, and Lamar. So if you won't mind, Helena, can we go to Lamar first, and then we'll come to you. Go ahead, Lamar.
I'm sorry. My grandson is beating down my door trying to get in, so I apologize. So the question I have is that I'm going into the food industry. Really? Really? I'm going into the food industry, and the question that I have is that I typed down the emotional impact. So I'm somebody that has a really high energy, and I think I could sell a product, and I feel passionate about what I'm doing. But when you put yourself out there in social media and Instagram and just start making a name for yourself, Yelp reviews and all of these different things start leveraging, and it starts creating a false narrative that's not you. Now, a lot of people really will put a lot of energy in trying to combat that. But if you're staying true to yourself, do you really focus on that, or you're just confident you got a good brand and you got good customer service and you ignore the noise?
The noise being social media, or the noise being?
Yeah, the negativity, the social media, just the posts, because it's just, you could just have a great product, but it's just like, I guess, Amazon. You have something that's proven, but you can go down 5 reviews and someone hated it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, there was a day when I said early on, I said this when the internet or social media was young, I said, don't read it, because coaches would read it and get all upset and all that. Then I got a little smarter. I think somebody needs to, I don't know if you're the one who needs to read it. Seriously, I don't know if you're the one. And I'm not so I don't think anybody, for the record, not this good. I've only read 2 evaluations in my whole 37-year career. It was the first time I taught, somebody said, boy, what a great teacher. And I'm like, yeah. Somebody said, what a pitiful person. And I fell off the face of the earth. I went from here to here. And I said, I'm never doing it. I'm never reading evaluation for the rest of my life. And I haven't. That's not smart. Hold on. That's not smart. But I can't handle the truth, either good or bad. But I can't be blinded by it either. So what I tell the students, and you tell your people, you have somebody read it for you and say, look, they're saying the food's coming late. They're saying whatever, and then you kind of adjust to it. And maybe if it gets, because if it gets negative, you can't just ignore it and say I want to be myself. If it's negative, if you've misstepped, if something goes wrong, that you have to be able to correct. So I would be careful with reviews. Don't be me and ignore it all. But don't be like some people and respond and fight to every one of them, because then your emotions are going to get out of hand, and then you're going to get in trouble. But I think my recommendation would be, unless you can handle it, I don't know if maybe people, they can handle it, but do they overreact? I would have somebody who can read it and sift through it for you. And if something looks like it's a glaring, significant problem, then I think you approach it. And I'll tell you all one more thing, and we practice this in our sports marketing class. The art of the apology is a skill. If you mess up, you got to say you messed up. If you give a bad product, say one of your products is bad, something happened with the food, you've got to say it was a mistake, I am sorry, and do something to overcome. They call it we call it service failure and recovery. If failure takes place, that'd be a bad review. Do something to correct it. And it's not all monetary. What they basically want to say, to hear you say, look, I'm sorry. Look, sorry my worker wasn't good. Sorry the food was late. We'll do better next time. That apology, and it's not scripted. It's just you at that moment politely letting them know. All the research in customer service says, if you hit a situation where there's failure and you can recover, and the recovery is a genuine apology of some sort, and maybe you give them a little something, but not financial, that they will remember the recovery, and that will rebuild the brand. So be attentive if something is glaring, but I would have somebody help you read it, and do not overreact if something bad does happen. Correct it, fix it. But guess what? You ready for this? You can't fix it unless the tone sounds like you're sincere, and the look, not a smile, but not an angry look. The look is basically a genuine, I'm sorry. And those who can do it, I believe, can correct anything bad that happens. And in the food industry, what really is the differentiator? Because all food is good, right? Yeah, I mean, your food is, to me, a good food is good food, average food is average food. It's the service that's given, it's the way you handle the little details, and it's the way you can answer the customer when they're dissatisfied. The customer is supposed, my friends, the customers are supposed to be angry. If they're angry, they're angry. The service is bad, the service is bad. You've got to be able to weather that negative storm and that disappointment by being able to sound like you're contrite and you care and I want to fix it, by not showing your frustration when they're frustrated. And I'm here, I've seen it, I know it, we work it. And you know what we're doing it now? With doctors. That's not the food industry, but it's the medical industry. A doctor's job is to get you healthy, yet doctors get slaughtered because they don't show care and compassion. They'll get you healthy, but if they don't show care and compassion, these doctors get cut. You want to see some negative reviews? The worst negative reviews I've ever seen are doctors who now get evaluated. And they just get crushed. When all they had to do is kind of what I'm suggesting that you do. Go back, call that patient, tell them I was a little hard. They say, come back in tomorrow. Let's take a look at that elbow again. Okay, food is bad. I'm going to send you another plate next week. It's my treat, just to let you know we're a little bit better than that. So that's a rambling answer, but I think buried in there might be something you can use. But I saw a tone of voice, I heard a tone of voice, and I saw a look you had when you first dialed in that was very likable. If you can use that, and I'm not saying, not just smiling all the time, but I saw a likable piece. If you can confront, we call it a negotiations, that's in your world, because everything is a negotiation. If you can have that difficult conversation and you can maintain these qualities, the end difficult conversation tips to your advantage. And a disgruntled customer is basically a difficult conversation.
Tell me, since we're on the topic of, failure and recovery, sorry, Helena, I'm just going to hold you off one more, but we'll get to you since we're on the same topic. Natasha, I know you talked about a couple of ways. You've talked about a couple of ways that you can offer that a business can recover, like a refund or a discount. Do you have any other ideas? A sorry. And with that, is there a time, is it really that the customer is always right? Is her question, can they sometimes be wrong?
Yeah, the customer.
Navigate that.
Yeah, that's hold on to that one for a second. Come back to that one. But the other one, I think you got to be creative in your recovery. If you're the last person, I'm sorry, was talking about the food. Is it a restaurant? Is it
hot dogs?
It's a restaurant.
He's yeah. Go ahead, Lamar.
Lamar, is it a restaurant or?
No, I'm gonna do a regional hot dog. So I'm gonna sell different types of hot dogs from all different places.
But they'll come to your store, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So anyway, when I'm thinking, here's this is just Tommy Karam. That's me. Here's my follow-up. If the experience is bad, you may say, the traditional, I'll comp you a Coke, I'll comp you some Coke, or something like that. Okay, to give them something, or here's a free thing for come back and get a lunch from us one day. But once you do that, that's just the beginning. Then maybe as they're exiting the door, you, the owner, leave and you go, excuse me, and you walk up to them and you politely say, sorry, it wasn't good, but give me come back again if you can. Those are the follow-ups at the end I'm talking about. When you got to be creative. I had a gal one time, we had a very special dinner at a restaurant. The meal was deplorable. The service was bad. The guy tried the best he can. Everybody left and they were angry because the meal was a special moment. It just didn't work. That's failure. The manager or the owner, whoever it was, apologized. That was nice. The next morning he called the house and apologized again. That's memorable. So there's no playbook for that. But I think in your heart, not to be corny, but I think in your heart, you got to follow up. It's like 2 or 3 steps after it takes place. To me, it's like, I'll use this as an example. It's not failure and recovery, but this is the example. People who are in the service, who waiters and waitresses, you ever notice waiters and waitresses? They are sensational until after you give the bill and they get the tip, they don't even know who you are. If a waiter wants to double their income after they get the tip, no matter what it is, 5, 10, 20, or no percent, if they would kindly, even it's eye contact, I hate that word, it's even some type of connection where you recognize them as they're leaving. You might open the door as they're leaving. You recognize them after the tip is delivered. I would argue every waiter and waitress's tips will go up, but better than that, if it's the restaurant you own, if it's the business you own, and not just the food business, I would believe that is that customer experience that nobody is able to deliver. So think about ways to do that. Back to the harder question, I don't know if the customer is always right or wrong, but you got to always be likable to the customer. And there comes a time when so I don't know whether they're always right, but I think you always have to try to satisfy the customer. Eventually, if you're working with somebody and they're over time and they're getting aggravation, you just politely move on. But in the industries y'all are going to be in, I think you're going to be interacting with people and they're going to be demanding, and they're probably going to be wrong in certain cases. But if you're judging right and wrong, I think it gets too combative. So my advice is this: no, they're probably not always right, but I'm gonna treat them as well as I can. So it's a question that is always there. But if you have the customer service, if you have taken care of the customer and leaving them with a positive impression of who you are, I think that's the best way to answer that question.
Thank you, Tommy. I'm gonna move it back to Helena now. She has another question.
So in the video, you had mentioned something called the sound of care, and I think you were just touching on it with the last 2 questions, but I was gonna ask you, how do you mimic the sound of care? Because you didn't go into a whole lot on the video, but you said it was important. So exactly what is that?
Well, the sound, you have to sound like you care. So Lamar something happened to Lamar's hot dog, and he goes, "Look, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm really sorry. Can I help? Can I help you? Can I help you?" So that's the sound of caring. You got to sound like you care. And this is not theatrical, by the way. I really want y'all to call me if y'all. I mean, I love EBV. If I can help you, I want y'all to call me. I'm not begging for y'all to call me, by the way, but I care, and that's the sound. If I said, "Hey, call me if you can," like, I'm not looking for y'all to call me. I'm not drumming up business. But if I can help you, I want to. And hopefully, that's where doctors mess up. That's why doctors doctors are all about this. They say this to you. And by the way, if you go, here's the deal. If you go to the Walgreens, go to Walgreens, get the medicine, take it tonight, your blood pressure is going to drop, and you're going to be fine tomorrow. If they tell y'all that, anybody on this screen, they tell you that, what you going to say about that doctor?
No bedside manner.
And oh no, that's being nice. What else you going to say? I'm going somewhere else. Y'all know that. When in fact, that doctor went to school for 12 years to be able to figure out how to get you well. He ordered the medicine, or she ordered the medicine, and she has it waiting for you, but because they didn't have the tone to sound like they care, and you're going to, by the way, you're going to take the medicine when you go home, and you're going to be well in the morning, but you're going to hate the doctor because he or she did not sound like they care. That's sounding like you care. And here's the problem. Boredom sets in because it's the same thing over and over. Y'all are great at what you do. You can do it blindfolded, but you got to deliver it like you care. That's why hello, can I help you doesn't work, except for some. That's why I love Chick-fil-A. My pleasure. Somehow, my pleasure. And they clip McDonald's. McDonald's is just as good and it's double as cheaper, but because they go, what? You hate McDonald's. Chick-fil-A goes, my pleasure, and everybody says it. And they're going through drive-through windows. They don't know who you are. They don't know what car you're driving. They don't know what you look like. They don't know they don't know who you are. And everybody gets it, my pleasure. So my advice, I'm changing it out next time in my next video. Forget about care. It's my pleasure. Sound like it's my pleasure. Have y'all ever wasted your money? Not wasted. They're great. Have you ever spent your money at Chick-fil-A? They make everybody feel like my pleasure. My pleasure. They sound like they care. 2 words. I love McDonald's, by the way, but they don't sound like they care.
Chick-fil-A is a customer service cult. They know how to be customer
No,
service.
they took the class and they know how to sound like they care. So sound like you care. When you give the apology, Lamar, sound like you care. Deanna, whenever you're doing recovery, sound like you care. And imperfection, as Shaquille O'Neal taught me, imperfection is gold. Me, I blew it. I'm sorry. I get it. You don't like it. The answer is no. You don't ever work with us. I got it. I'm so sorry. I wish we'd done better. You can't teach it. You can't teach it. But you can tell people to learn it, and they'll learn it.
I heard a quote that said, people care more when you are real than when you are right. So
Perfect quote.
that's lasted a long time with me.
Yeah.
I deal with customers all the time. You, in a sense, are my customers in a sense for this, although I don't view you as customers. You're veterans. I view it as I'm trying to serve you, and that's really, I feel like how you should view customers. I mean, you're trying to serve them. You're providing a service or a product for them, and when you kind of put yourself into the shoes of I'm serving you, it changes your attitude a little bit. As opposed to just like, I'm running a business. If it's an act of service almost, and what better way than make money off of it too, right? But those are some great thoughts, Tommy. I have a couple burner questions. I don't have any questions from anybody in the chat. Does anybody else, before I go to some of these questions, does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask live right now on the spot? All right. I will move to another question. Tommy, so could you kind of talk a little bit about, I know in your video, you talked really about the importance of the customer, and I know we've been really on that topic, and the benefits minus costs equals customer value, and referrals, right? And you really went into that, how important are referrals? I know we talked about it a little bit. Could you expand on that a little more? And, with that, as we're being, small businesses competing against these large companies, how can these small businesses set themselves apart from their competitors in dealing with customers?
It's particularly for small businesses. And this is in marketing is a term, they say referrals, that's kind of, but really it's word of mouth. Word of mouth is so elementary. People say word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth, but word of mouth is powerful. A blog is basically word of mouth. Lamar, one of these posts on social media, it's word of mouth. So you get the word of mouth on social media would be a blog or a post. The word of mouth is whenever people walk out and they say things about your organization, your company, your business, the people who work for you. And so I think word of mouth leads to referrals. And so if you can create an experience for the customer where first of all, your product has to be good, your service has to be good. So I'm going to assume it's excellent or it's good enough. It's competitive. There's the value, by the way. There's the benefit. The benefit is, so the benefits minus cost basically means there's a certain cost. What benefits can you add to it that are bigger enough to make it add customer value? So the benefits I have is our customer service is going to be extraordinarily good. Our attention to detail is going to be great. Our prices are going to be wonderful. And the ability to anticipate the needs of the customer, to follow up, to call when the deal is done, to say thank you when it's over. After the sale is done, y'all know this, but after the sale is done, the sale just starts. And after they say no, I think there's a follow-up to no. I think all of this creates referrals and creates good word of mouth. My friend, the sports agent who became good after he was really bad, he learned what no was, and he started sending notes out and following back up, not with the athlete, because that'd be tampering, but with the families he spent 1 year cultivating. And he would say, go see the guy you signed with, is going to be great. Good luck, go Tigers, and he's going to take care of you. The families, for some reason, fell in love with that. And they would then do what? The referral would be, another young kid comes, who do you have? Well, I use so-and-so, but if I had to do it over again, I would have used Albert Loss. But I tell you what, I tell you somebody else who's good, that's a referral. And customer service, you talk about, but you can't talk about it you cannot, when you stop talking about customer service and the customer, I think you lose the competitive advantage. In my world, it's the student. And I tell them, y'all are the customer. And I've got to give you a good product. I've got to teach you something. And my added value is this for the students. I'll do more outside of the class to help you if you want it. How many come to my office? 1 out of 700. But at least the offer is legitimate and the offer is there. I don't know what it is. A letter of recommendation, maybe help with, I don't know. And maybe it's nothing, but to let them know that you're there, you want to help them, come to me. And when they do, you got to be able to be there to help them. So again, you said, it's not how you said whatever it is. There's this genuineness in how you answer a question. I think everybody out there has a heart, not to be corny, but you got a heart and you got to think, how can I make that person across from me feel like I care? Either sound like I care or follow up with some mechanism to show that you care. It's huge.
To piggyback off that, I'm running usually when we're in non-COVID-19 days. I run conferences of, 200 plus people, 400 plus people. And, a lot of people come through, a lot of veterans, military spouses, attendees come through and they have specific requests or needs. And I make a lot of promises. And so we started keeping a promise book, and we take it to our conferences, and anytime somebody has a request or a need and we decide we're going to make a promise to them, first of all, we don't make a promise that we can't keep. Second of all, we write it down in our promise book so that when we get back and the hype is over and we can take a breath, we can go through the promises and see what we need to follow through on. Some we answer directly, and it's a really cool way also to just keep track of your, the requests that you get. And it's something so simple, but it really helps us. I mean, we get fielded questions all the time. Sandra's been to our conferences. There's 80 million things going on, 15 on the conference team, and a lot of people have a lot of needs, which is great because we're there to connect them with the resources that they need. But a lot of promises are given. And so we want to make sure we follow through on those. So just something small that
it's brilliant. And if not that you're going to break the promise, but what if the promise, you forget the promise? There's the failure and there's the follow-up. So I love the idea. And then that's your technique, and everybody has to create their own. I think it's wonderful. It's so easy when the game is over to walk off the field and leave. It's so easy when the sale is finished to forget about the person. It's so easy once the transaction is completed to be gracious, which is good, and to not follow up. If you can create a follow-up, I think that is a point of differentiation. I think that is a benefit you can create that adds value to your business, to your service, and what you're trying to do. And I think it separates you from the competition.
Absolutely. We have one final question from the group, and then I'll close with a quick question. This one's from Tiana again. She said that if I'm totally authentic, I curse and joke a bit, but I work in a very professional realm. I assist others' business in building business strategies. Do you think it's okay to show that part of myself, or should I try to hold back and be professional, quote unquote?
I would be careful. You say cursing, this is just me. I think cursing is not good. I think cursing will define your brand. I try to tell the athletes this. I try to tell the students this, and I tell you all this. To curse, if you want to curse, you curse. It's sinful, but I think the cursing will define your brand more than you think it will. So I would never curse in a professional setting. Can you just, even though it may be joking, I think it just, it shifts our mentality. It's not saying you're a bad person at all, but I just say, and then the variety of language you can use, although it's not meant in a mean way, it's meant maybe a lighthearted way. I've seen the reaction it causes. Not that people are offended. It's not the offended piece. I think it taints the brand. No, it tips the brand in a direction. So I would be, if that question, which is a good question, but it's a hard question, I would be very, very careful not to do it. And the other thing about this, about just that concept, is even though I may be having this conversation with you who can take it and it's okay and you don't mind, it's the way we work, you got to know that there may be somebody 12 feet away or in a room next to you who hear it. So just because it's not aimed at you and it's done in a friendly, lovable way, that language is going to have, people will perceive you differently if they've never heard it, even though they are overhearing it. And yes, the camera never blinks and the ears don't either. So you've got to be careful how people may judge you after that.
Thank you for that advice. Lastly, I have a question for you, Tommy, and I did not prep you with this question. I apologize. I did with the last two, so I'm very sorry for putting you on the spot. If you've got to follow up with me later, that's fine. But if you could recommend one book, article, video, something for our class to read or watch, what would it be?
I have a book that just came out. So, no, I'm kidding. I have a book, by the way, at 1-800. You know, that I'm gonna have to think about because I don't know. I don't know of a book that does it. I definitely don't have the book. I don't write. I don't know of a book that has it. There's some articles out there that are really good. And this is, oh, by the way, my friends, sometimes the best answer, I just heard this at Stanford, sometimes the best answer is you don't know. I just don't know. Not something that you're, maybe the best answer tonight, I don't know. But I've got a collection of articles that are sensational. And I think it's so broad because everybody who is here tonight and everybody has a different question. So send me a note and let me pull some articles and I think it's more of, I don't know a book. I know there's not a personal branding book I know about. But there are articles out there that I think can help people in sales and stuff. That's a rambling answer. I don't know.
That's fine.
But send me that and I'll put together some articles for you.
We'll do that. I appreciate that, and I can share them with the class.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I forgot to prep you with that one.
No, that's okay.
This class particularly, I mean, you mention a book and they buy it.
Yeah. I wish I had a book, but
and
I don't.
Bob has it read in like 3 minutes. I mean, he's a speed reader. So.
Yeah, no. And listen, hold on. Just for the record, there are probably a bunch of them out there. I would love to read one. I just haven't found one that I think is if I put it in somebody's hands, it could really have power. But they're out there. I just don't know who they are.
Well, we are right on time. It is 7:45 p.m. on the dot. And Tommy, I just want to thank you so much for
I'm sorry I rambled,
time.
Class. I'm
You
sorry I
did not.
rambled, but I had so much to say. I love working for EBV. I love what y'all do. I love working. I love being a part and being invited. So if I ramble too much, I apologize. Pluck something out of the air. But those of you who are still around, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Do your homework tonight. Look in the mirror. Figure out your default look. And I think it will answer all the questions you asked me tonight. Love y'all. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Okay.
We'll share the recording and I'll share Tommy's email address. And as soon as I'll email him. And when I get a collection of articles, we'll share those with you as well.
That's beautiful.
Yes, you can unmute and clap for him if you'd like.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you all so much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
Have
you.
a happy 4th of July, everyone.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.